Hello, nice to see you here. I'm Myra Lewin, and we're going to talk about Ayurveda. All right. So, since we're going to talk about Ayurveda, which is the science of life and the science of living, let's begin with a mantra. And this mantra is that that we may bring light to our consciousness, that that we do that in our time together. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotir Gamaya Mrityorma Mritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Right. Okay, how many of you know something about Ayurveda? Yeah? Okay, a little bit. So we're going to go through some of the basics, and then talk about why would you want to do this? So it's the science of living. It was given to us from the Vedas, along with yoga and Jyotish, the Vedic astrology, as well as Vastu, and so can't hear it in the back.
About as loud as we can go without peaking your mic.
Okay. I'll talk louder. Okay. But you know what? There's some spaces up here, and you know what? You could come right up here next to me if you'd like. I would like that. So, okay. So let's talk about it, but let's talk about it first from where we are right now. Have a seat. And that is that, would you like to feel better? Yeah? Yeah. Do you have a lot of times where you don't feel that great? Anybody? Do you have times where you're, where it seems like maybe you've accepted a lower level of living? Yeah, I think many of us have in life today, because, well, what's the definition of health? Yeah, so health to many people today is I may not have an active disease, but if I have an active disease, I'm taking a medication and managing it, so I'm healthy. I'm healthy because I can make it to work most of the time. Yeah, that's the way many of us look at it. So we're going to take a little look at something about Ayurveda first, and then how it applies to how we're living every day. So these tents, have the names of the elements, right? And these 5 elements are present in everything in nature, and they're present in us, right? So what is that? So there's earth. So we've got this physical mass, right? We have water. We know our bodies are about 75% water, yeah, hopefully, yeah. And then we have fire. We have the fire of transformation. So if I cut myself right now, yeah, and then I go to bed and tomorrow I wake up, it's already knitting back together. Yeah? It takes fire energy to do that. And then there's air, we breathe, and then there's space. And that space is what defines the physical mass. Yeah, sometimes there's a little bit too much of that air in us, right? And then we have gas. It's pretty uncomfortable. So these elements in us at the time of our conception, there's a unique combination of those 5 elements that makes up each of us. And that's why we look different. We have different preferences. We have different journeys through life. So those 5 elements in us then at that time of conception is the ideal place for each of us. Again, though, it's not exactly the same in all of us. We're not one size fits all. So that's okay. So that notion that we should all be alike, or that we should all respond the same ways to things, is not correct. Right? We know that. That's what we experience. But there's a lot of things that we've been programmed to think that we should be alike. Yeah? But we are human. We're alike in that. Yeah? So, that's pretty loud. I'll try to stay with you here. So we have these 5 elements in us, and the thing is that we go through life, and everything starts happening, right? I'm in utero, and everything that's happening to mom is happening to me, and then I pop out, and then we start doing life, and so those elements in us then get imbalanced, right? And so then that's our condition at any point in time, and it's not permanent; it changes. So that's part of the basis of this. And we look then beyond those elements to what are the qualities of them. So I won't go into a lot of that detail, but the qualities are things like some things are light and some things are heavy, right? Food, yeah? And some of your experiences are, they're smooth and some of them are rough. And so these are all qualities, 20 qualities that are present in nature. So the principles of nature then are what Ayurveda is based in. And so there's a few principles, and I'll mention them now, and then we can come back to them as we talk about some specific things. And those principles are, number 1 is that like qualities attract like qualities. And opposite qualities bring balance. So now think about, let's say it's cold weather, yeah, and you get a little chilled, and you go home, and what are you going to have to eat? Something hot to something warm to bring balance. Now that's the choice you'll make when you're when things are pretty good. But then, if you have been reading a lot of articles that raw food is really best, and that's what's going to give you the most nutrients, and then you eat a raw meal, right? So your thinker took over from what I'll call your common sense, right? Because the thing is that everything I'm going to talk about in Ayurveda, we actually know it inside already. And it's because of many things on the outside, and how we've been taught to use our minds, we get distracted from it. And so my hope today is that you can start to get a little feel for how it could be different. Because most of the problems that we have today are things that we're doing to ourselves. We do things that get in the way of nature taking its course, right? So in Ayurveda, we look at, there are 4 pillars of health. And what have you heard about Ayurveda before? I mean, maybe you were listening to some cooking, yeah? What have you heard? Anybody? Just, it's a type of thing? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, you can have what's called sattvic energy, which is balanced and harmonious and pleasant. Yeah. Anything else? Anybody else? Say again? Health seeking? Oh, healthy eating. Right. Right. So the things that we look at these 4 pillars of health are, number 1, what's called the ahar, your diet. And then vihar, which is, we say lifestyle, but it's actually, how do I live my life? Yeah, because sometimes that word lifestyle, we think about, I have to do these certain things in order to practice Ayurveda. And that's ridiculous. It's a matter of understanding some of these principles and how do I want to interact with them, which then gets me results in life. So we have the diet and we have how we live. And the third one is nidra, which is our sleep. Something that gets highly neglected these days. And then the 4th one is brahmacharya. Now you might have heard brahmacharya as being how you manage your sexual energy, but it's actually, since that's the most powerful energy that we have, it is very much about how we manage our own energy. And something that maybe a lot of us haven't thought about too much before. But these things all make a difference. So let's talk about those a little bit. So your ahar, your diet, a lot of people hear about Ayurveda, they hear about Ayurvedic cooking and that, but it's actually, it's based in those principles of like attracts like, and the opposite qualities bring balance. So there's discussion about spices and what foods should I eat or not eat, and that, and there's not exact right and wrong for anybody. It's a matter of understanding what's working and what doesn't work, and why. And so by learning how to look at the at those elements, yeah, and how those qualities all interact in us, that's what makes the difference in understanding how to prepare food according to Ayurvedic principles, how to prepare food that you're going to be able to digest. So it's not just about the food, though. There's so many aspects to this, because if you think about it, many of you, most of you probably, that plants are some of the main things that you eat, right? And a lot of times we don't give a lot of reverence to those plants. Or we don't give reverence to the meal. So that's one thing that we could do. In other words, that we don't sit down and just start putting it in there real fast, but that we give a little bit of respect that this is an opportunity for me to connect with nature every day. Yeah? Do you think of your food that way? Yeah. And that would be something to consider, to bring in, because it will make a difference in how well you digest it. You see, and one of the reasons I was mentioning about the raw food versus the warm cooked food when you're chilled is that you need to be able to digest the food. And that digestion then is part of what is affected, and I'm going to talk about that on Sunday, I think, a little more in depth. But that how you approach it is just as important as what the food is. Yeah, sometimes we might have a food where we can't get the exact food we want, but if we say a prayer over it, we chant a mantra, or we just acknowledge it and acknowledge the hands that brought it to us, right? Because the attitude of the person that cooked it is going to make a difference in your ability to digest it. Think about that. Now that's that energy that we're talking about. So we have the ahar, the diet, the vihar, I didn't say that earlier, is how you live your life, and then our sleep, and then how we manage our energy. So the vihar, how we live our lives, very much about, if you're following some of the principles from yoga, right, then we want to practice ahimsa. We want to practice nonviolence. We want to do things where we conduct ourselves in lives with respect. Just like we're talking about respecting the food, right? Then we also want to respect each other, to have respect for ourselves. Yeah? But what are the things about lifestyle? Anybody? What do you do today that you kind of wonder about? Is this a really good thing to be doing?
Synchronicity with the nature, seasons.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Respecting the seasons, respecting change. Yeah. Yeah. Respecting the change that we go through in life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So allowing ourselves to flow with life is very, it sounds very simple, but it actually makes a difference in how we feel on a day-to-day basis. And what is that? It's very much about my attitude. And so Ayurveda then, we don't just talk about the body, we're talking about the body, the mind, and the spirit all working together in a dynamic. Yeah. So this idea, we have two words for body and mind, right? But there's not really a difference. So consider this. Consider that your mind is present all the way through your body. Now, it's not just the brain. It's on a cellular level. So that's why I can get upset about something, and one person, myself, it might bother me in my tummy. Yeah. Somebody else, it might bother them in their jaw. Yeah. So So we are quite unique in this way. And the best person to understand that is each of you. Yeah. And that's what Ayurveda gives to us. So we have our diet and how we live. So one of the things that goes on today is doing too much. Any of you do too much? Yeah. And that's a sign of imbalance, and it starts feeding the imbalance. So remember, I was talking about like attracts like qualities attract like qualities. Opposite qualities bring balance. Well, one of the things that happens is that when the qualities when there's too much of something going on, then I crave that. And this word craving means I'll go after it without really considering the consequences. Yeah? So there's a difference, when I start to go a little bit out of balance, I'll have a preference for something, right? It doesn't make my voice get loud. It doesn't make my eyes get big. But it's, I like to have spinach. Yeah. But something I used to say was, I love tomatoes. I have them every day of my life, which was what I did do before I came to Ayurveda. And I had digestive problems. It wasn't the only factor, but it was a factor. And a big part of that was because I craved them. And so I was after them all the time. So remember, like qualities attract like qualities. Yeah. So a lot of times with our diet and our lifestyle, we're doing things because it seems we're very attracted to them or we're craving them, but they're actually taking us more out of balance. And you say, well, but I love it. And the thing is that there are consequences from that. Yeah? Have any of you ever had consequences from something you've done? Yeah? Yeah, we do. We have consequences from things, from everything, really. And sometimes those consequences are not very positive. Yeah. And so this is something that we talk about in yoga and in Ayurveda, and that is that our senses are something that they're here to serve us. But sometimes we start doing things and things go out of balance, these elements in us go out of balance, and then we start going after more of it. Yeah? I think maybe like the lady said earlier about chilies. Yeah, you start having too much pungent food, and then you're going after more pungent food, and then more, and because you don't taste very much. Yeah, so garlic, onions, chilies, those kinds of things. And we lose that subtlety that's available to us. And so if you think about, well, why do I care if these elements are a little bit out of balance? I really like tomatoes, or I really like chilies. And so I want to keep doing that. But we need to understand that when those elements are out of balance, that's what causes disease. Right? So the little symptoms that you get, so things like gas, just a little bit of an upset tummy, a little bit of heartburn, feeling groggy in the morning, having a difficult menstruation, not being able to sleep. So these are all things that come as a result of our doing something that's getting in the way of our body and mind and spirit working together knows how to do. It knows how to do that, right? I mean, if I cut myself, it goes back together. I mean, isn't that pretty amazing? Yeah. I mean, it's incredible, the body's ability to heal. But the body heals when the mind goes in that direction. Yeah? And I will have my mind go in that direction when I'm connected to my spiritual self or my higher self or the God of my heart. So when I have that sense of connection, I'll make those best choices for myself. And when that connection's it's a little shady, it's not quite there, then I start making choices where my senses are going outside of me looking for more. Yeah, so one of the main causes of disease then is when we make an error, we'll say, an intellectual error, it's called sometimes, in our choices. I'll choose something that I know is going to make me feel bad afterwards, or I know that isn't actually serving me. Yeah. So these are the kinds of things that we come to understand and how we can make different choices in Ayurveda. And it all comes back to understanding, getting a feel for those elements in us, yeah? And then starting to understand that those 5 elements are present in the food that we eat. They're present in our environment, right? There's a fair amount of wind today, right? And so if that wind element is out of balance in us already, and I stand out there in that wind all day, I'm going to be spacey. Yeah, I'll be, have a little bit of trouble focusing in that, and then I'll probably have a little bit of trouble sleeping. You see, so all of that is having an effect. That some very simple things that you can just think about, and that is, how many of you eat pretty fast? Yeah. And any of you ever think about your chewing? Yeah, do you chew the food? Yeah, the folks that are familiar with Ayurveda. If you chew your food thoroughly, you sleep better. Yeah, so one of the things that we recognize in Ayurveda then is that everything is connected and everything matters. Everything makes a difference. You see, because if I don't chew my food, and before I came to Ayurveda, I didn't chew my food very well, then my body can't digest it. My stomach is not going to be able to break it down properly, and then it's going to go through my system and cause imbalance there. And it's imbalance in those elements that it starts to cause. It creates what we call indigestion, right? And that starts to lead to lots of other problems. Okay, so it's things that we do that cause those imbalances. Now, we may be born with some imbalance, but it's correctable. And that's the thing. Another thing is that we think, we get told often that, oh, you have this problem, it's going to be there the rest of your life. Or you may look at it and say, well, but I've had it all my life. I've been like that all my life. But it doesn't have to stay that way. If you think about your life, 5 years ago, is it different? Are you different? Yeah, it's changing all the time. And those elements, just like the elements outside, are changing, right? I think it poured rain yesterday afternoon, yeah? And now we have sun and we have the breeze, and it was cool during the night, lots of changes. Yeah. And those changes then are going on inside of us, and by the way, that weather does have an effect on us. And it doesn't mean it's always negative. It just means that we need to recognize that it has an effect. So everything I'm doing makes a difference. And you might say, well, then what do? I don't know what to do. Well, there's really simple things that make a big difference in how you feel. And that is that, you have 3 meals in the day, that you not eat between meals, because you need to give your body a chance to digest what you ate previously. Because when it has a job, you give it a meal about the size of your hands, and that's relative to the size of your stomach. And it has a process that it goes through. And we understand that in great detail in Ayurveda, and probably a little bit differently than modern medicine looks at it. And so we understand what those steps are that need to happen. But if 2 hours later, I eat again, so now I've put undigested food, what I just ate, on top of partially digested food, and it creates a mess. And so then that's when we start to get all those naggy little symptoms. Some gas, some burping, some belching, some heartburn, those kinds of things. Yeah? Because, and then what happens is if I keep doing that, it gets worse. Yeah, so those messages are is our body telling us what you didn't work. Something's not working right now. Yeah, and you would be amazed. You could have had gas for the last 30 years, and you can make a few changes, and then it will be different. It will change. Something to think about. Yeah. But we get pretty attached to the way we do things. Any of you ever had that experience where you don't want to change something and say, well, I don't want to change that. I've been doing that all my life. So what else could you do then? Well, sometimes we can find alternatives. In other words, there's things that I do that I find out that it's causing me difficulty, and so I can learn how to do some things differently. And that's what Ayurveda invites us to do. So we have these 4 pillars of health, and when we take care of all 4 of them, and you know, it's actually much simpler than what many are doing today. We don't have to look at all the nitty-gritty of the food. We don't have to know about every amino acid in the food, and we don't need to know about the vitamins and that. We need to understand what elements are in the food, what's going on in me, how do I need to prepare it so that I can digest it, and that it then becomes my body tissue, right? You've heard the expression, you are what you eat. Yes? Yeah. And we have a very nice way in Ayurveda of explaining how that creation of body tissue takes place. It's quite amazing. So we have our eating, our living, our sleep, and how we manage our energy. So if you're familiar with this, bear with me. So take your hands and do this a little bit, yeah? And then bring your hands, so, you know, about body width apart. Bring your palms toward each other, and I want you just to go real slowly and just note what you feel. What do you feel? Anybody? Pardon me? Tingling, yeah, so tingling. What else? There's no wrong, or no right and wrong. Warmth. Anybody feel pressure? Pressure, yeah. That's your energy. Yeah, so if I do that and I come near you, I'm going to feel your energy. Yeah. And you are responsible for all of that. So what are we doing in Ayurveda? Well, my diet, my living, my sleep, and how I manage my energy is all about moving our energy, or our prana, our life force, right? Because when I do that, it feels good. I feel good. I can be at my best. And so that's the purpose of it. Yeah, it's not so we can get it right or anything like that, because there's a response that we have in Ayurveda when somebody asks the question, and the answer is, well, it depends. And it depends on the condition, the situation, the context. Yeah? Yeah, so it's much simpler than it sounds. It's so simple, right? So if I feed my body food that, let's say, has a balance of those 5 elements in it, yeah, has a pretty good balance, and it's cooked enough so that I can digest it, and then I chew it to start that digestive process after the cooking, then I have an opportunity to make good quality body tissue. Yeah. And that's how that happens. And so then we look at something like aging, and we say, well, yeah, but I'm older, and so my body tissue is not as good as it used to be. But it's amazing how good it can be. And even when we're older, how much it can improve. Yeah. So in Ayurveda then, one of the things that we look at is, how do I take care of myself? How do I prevent disease? And how do I reverse the disease process? So if I have a disease going on, I can reverse that. But it doesn't happen just with the diet. It happens with the whole picture. It happens with, what am I doing with my mind? And how am I connecting to my deeper self, my innermost self? And if I'm doing that, then it's amazing the healing that can take place. And sometimes that healing is because I have an active disease, and sometimes it might be just that I'm willing to see myself in life differently. In other words, I can step forward and do the things I really want to do in life instead of being held back by opinions that I have about myself, right? Yeah, one of the common things that we hear today is I have low self-esteem. Well, my self-esteem is just my opinion of me. Yeah, that's it, right? Because other people will say, "Oh no, you're great at, you do this, you do that, and that." But I'm sitting there saying, I can't do it. I'm not enough. And we all can have those feelings, but we also have solutions and ways to move beyond that. So we have these 5 elements. The 5 elements are in our body, and we have it in nature, and we have it in our food. And so we get to do this dance of life with all of this. So I eat that food, and if I've got a reasonably good attitude and I haven't insulted my body too much, I'll actually digest the food and I will make body tissue. Yeah? Yeah. Have any of you ever thought you were eating really well, but then your muscles were not doing, started to kind of go away, and you started to have cellulite, or, it feels like your bones are getting smaller? Anybody had that before? Yeah. Yeah. And it's actually what's happening when you're not digesting. So this digestion then isn't just about chewing my food and am I digesting my food. It is about digesting life. Very much about digesting life. So if I make this really fabulous meal and I sit down to eat it and I'm angry about something, I'm not going to digest it well. It's not going to go well. Yeah. It makes that much difference. So one of the things then that sometimes people have a difficult time with Ayurveda is they say, it sounds too difficult. I might have to make changes. It does require change. But we do that when we recognize that what I'm doing isn't working that well. Because each one of us is meant to feel well in life. Even if we're born with some special difficulty, yeah? We are meant to feel well in the process of life. And when we're connected to our innermost self and we're respecting ourselves, then we do feel well. When people go into Ayurveda, they will wake up in the morning and they tell me about how I felt good for the first time in 15 years. Yeah, and it's possible. So that's a little bit of an introduction to Ayurveda. Now, I can tell you a number of different things that you might consider changing and seeing how it goes, and I will. I'll mention some more of those. I can tell you a whole lot more about Ayurveda. There's one other aspect, though, that I think would be very important to understand, because it affects my diet and my lifestyle and how I sleep and that. So there are these aspects of nature, we call them the mahagunas, or they're the great aspects of nature. And there are 3 of them, and they're called tamas, rajas, and sattva. And these 3 aspects are present in us. They're present in nature, they're present in our food, and it's just a matter of how much of each of them that makes an enormous difference in how we experience life. Right? So tamas is stagnation. It's negativity, emotionally, and it's our sleep. Our sleep, is one of the main times that we're healing. So it's not just about being good and bad. It's just about how much of it we have, right? So this tamas, then, if I'm leading a reasonably balanced life, right? I'm taking care of myself, I'm eating, I'm sleeping, I'm not doing too much and that, then I'll have the right amount of tamas so that I can sleep at night, and that my body and my mind can have a restful, healing time. But if I have too much of that, I get depressed. I start getting really negative. I get stuck. Can't do new things. Yeah. And then the next one is rajas, which is the activity of life. Well, I need the activity of life, right? Yeah, we want to do things. We want to be productive, or we want to experience new things in life. But we need to have the right amount of it and the right kind. If you think about your activities, yeah, so you're here today. Yeah, it's pretty nice. This is a very nice rajasic thing to do. You would come down here, we talk and that, and then maybe you do some chanting mantra or something like that, and that's going to bring in a little more of the sattva. Already? Okay. And so this rajas then has to be right kind, right? Because I can be doing a lot of activity of the wrong kind. It could be activity that's harmful to other people, activity that's harmful to me. Yeah. But if I have too much of the right kind, too much of it, then it's going to send me toward tamas, right? I get exhausted. I become depressed because all that activity is not getting me what I really want. Because what we really all want is to feel well. Yeah, is to feel that sense of peace inside, to be able to recognize the stillness that is the God in us, or that is our higher self. And so we can do that. Yeah, so this rajas then, right kind, right amount, takes me to sattva. And sattva is the sweetness of life. It's the balance and the harmony. It's when I can be with a child and just be present, because they are full of sattva before they get too exposed to too much else. Yeah. That sattva then, it's if you think about a baby that's just born, or any animal actually, there's that specialness that's there. That's the sattva that's present in all of us. Now it's a matter of how much is there. How much tamas, rajas, and sattva do I have? Well, if I'm eating tamasic food that's heavily processed foods, for example, stuff that most stuff that comes in a package, then I'm going to have more tamas in me. Yeah, it will cultivate more of that. And if I eat freshly cooked food with moderate spicing to support my digestion and that, then I'll have more sattva. Yeah. If I eat chilies and garlic and onions a lot, I'm going to have more rajas, because those are stimulating. And they stimulate to the point of disturbance. They cause disturbance in your digestive tract. So this tamas, rajas, and sattva, then we can look at the food, we can look at our activities, we can see about everything we expose ourselves to. And believe me, this doesn't mean you have to go hide in a cave. It just means that we can each take responsibility for the gift that we've been given of this body and this life. And so Ayurveda then offers us very simple solutions to be able to do that. And so now they told me I have to stop soon. So any questions or any thoughts about it? Yeah.
Would you like the microphone?
I know this is a difficult question to ask. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I understand that Ayurveda is sort of very individual to the individual. But when there's something like a really poor summer, which I don't mention right now, but say we're exposed to really bad weather for a really long time, loads of and we can't change that. And that can sort of change you, but you can't change the weather. So how would you support something like that?
You would make sure that you're having more sattva in your life. You'd have more, make sure you're having sattvic foods and that your activities are of a sattvic nature, and you'll make the best of it. And you'll be able to keep that attitude that I'm going to make the best of this. And I'm going to look for those brief moments where there's some sunlight outside and go outside. Yeah, yeah.
I'm just going to ask a question. I just want to know what you have for breakfast.
Sure.
What is your...
I had stewed apples with raisins. Yeah, and they were lovely. Yeah, yeah. Often I have a porridge of some sort. Yeah. Other questions?
Raisins and then porridge.
Yeah. Was this helpful? Yeah? Yeah. So, a couple of things then. Chew your food. Chew it till there's no solids being swallowed, because it has to mix with your saliva in order to initiate the digestive enzymes so that you can digest it. Yeah? 3 meals a day. Leave out the snacks. You know, most of you, no, I don't think anybody's here probably is as old as I am, but I have to tell you, I grew up, nobody would ever snack, because back then we knew that it would ruin your meal. We didn't understand why, but that was it. So, and there's a whole history of food that I could tell you about and how this all came about. But I just want to suggest to you that when you get your digestive capacity working, that you only need 3 meals a day. You'll never have to think about your weight being too little or too much again. Yeah, and it's a great thing of living in harmony with how your body and mind and spirit are designed. We just work with the design, and that's what Ayurveda does. Yeah.
Can we find balance with sweet?
Can you what?
Find balance with sweet.
With sweets? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yeah. Yeah, if you crave a lot of sweets and sugar and things like that, it's because there's imbalance in the system, and yes, you can get beyond it. Yeah, you can still love it, but you can get beyond the craving. Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to ask about ashwagandha. Is it something that you can take all the time? Is it something that you need to come off for a while and then go back to?
No, not necessarily. However, if we go to Ayurveda, and it's a more original form, we put formulas together. So we don't take just one herb, very rarely. And that's become very popular today because people are trying to sell things and that. And so you can take it longer term. You know, if you have a little bit too much heat in your body, it might be something you'd want to reduce the amount and that. But you're going to be much more successful for why you're taking it if it's in a formula with other herbs, so that you bring balance into the system. So a way of thinking that is that if I take one herb or one thing, I'm trying to fix something. So I'm working from the outside in. And what we do in Ayurveda is that we support the body to do what it knows how to do. So we bring a formula in so that we're not going to calm something down and then balance something else at the same time. Yeah. And so that's something that you want to be careful of, is the amount that you're taking. And that, yeah.
Do you have a question from over here?
I just want to ask the rules on liquids when you eat in Ayurveda. You know, in Western ways, sometimes people say you shouldn't drink a lot of liquid whilst you're eating. You should only drink after you've eaten. And what are the rules around Ayurvedic food intake along with liquids, be it water or whatever?
Right. Well, there aren't rules. But I would suggest that you always have to take a look at what is my digestive capacity, and I'm going to talk about that on Sunday, which is what's your Agni doing? Is it able to do its job? And but generally you don't want to drink after the meal, and I know that it hits on a lot of people's habits, but and the reason is because you don't want to dilute that digestive process. Right. And so, you know, you could say you could have about a half a cup with the meal if you needed to, but it's better if you hydrate through the day then you don't need to. Yeah. Yeah. So then it's a matter, again, we're kind of back to that self-responsibility thing. I need to just take care of myself. So I have a half a cup of water every hour, and just very simple things. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, if we wanted to get a sense of where we are Ayurvedically and our imbalances, what would you recommend in terms of how could we make that assessment, be it by ourselves or through others? There's just so much information and people that are, Ayurvedic practitioners. It's quite hard to know where to start. I'd love your thoughts on that.
Okay. If you're able to, it's good to have a session with a practitioner. But if that's not possible due to finances or something like that, then you can start just by making some very simple changes. Now, there's something called a dosha quiz or a dosha questionnaire. You have to be really careful with that and just realize it can tell you a little bit about where you are right now, but in terms of assessing, it's not definitive. Those things, that was actually only started in the late 20th century. It's something that came about actually for Westerners to be able to sort through this, because we've been trained to think linearly. And so if you can remember this, we need to think holistically. We need to think that this is a dynamic experience. So you could use a dosha questionnaire, and just get an idea of what's out of balance, and start from there, and then start looking at various recipes and that. Yeah, we have a lot of information on our website with that. Yeah.
Apologies, I came in late. I heard you say about the 3 meals a day.
Yes.
There's that whole detox generation of food, etc. I myself and many of my family don't eat till 2 p.m. and it's not a weird metabolism thing. We just wake up and that's what we do. And we eat at different times, but we do start eating about 6:30. I'm not sure that every human being is designed to eat at 8, 1, and 7. And I'm sorry if you covered that before because I did come in late.
It's a longer discussion, so it'll come on Sunday, and I will talk about that definitely.
Myra,
Okay.
can I just say Myra is the founder of Hale Pule, which is a school of Ayurveda and yoga, and I know she'd love to talk to you all more. So if you want to come and sit over there, maybe on the hay bales, anyone that perhaps wants to chat a little, we'd be happy to.
You're trying to get me out of here, right?
She'll talk more. No, she will. But
Okay.
we're here tomorrow at 10:30. Graceful aging. If
Okay.
please come and join us.
Namaste. Thank you.